Hello. Just want to say a few things about current events and current happenings because I see people getting caught in a pincer movement which is pitching left against right. It's gathered massive pace since the shooting of Charlie Kirk, and I'm looking on aghast at how people are falling for it. In some cases, people who should know better. Because, you know, once upon a time, in the wake of COVID and before, the alternative media kind of understood that we live in one-party states. And as they used to say in America when I was traveling there a lot in the 1990s, it doesn't matter who you vote for because the government still gets in. And that seems to have been forgotten in this frenzy of pitching right against left. And I just want to offer the benefit of 35, 36 years of investigating and researching this, that there is another level which if we don't understand, we will never get the picture. And that other level is what I call the global cult. It's a global network of secret societies, fiercely compartmentalized. So even most of the people in the secret societies don't know the real big picture. Only the inner core does. It's all compartmentalized right down the system. And this cult has an agenda to create a global dystopia which involves the fusing of the human mind, brain, body with artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence becomes the human mind. And therefore, it becomes possible to create a hive mind in which people's thoughts and emotional responses are fed to them. And all these AI oligarchs, Musk and Andreessen and Thiel and Sam Altman, Larry Ellison, they're pushing the world towards this. And as I said before the Trump regime came in, he's being brought in to target that area, that mentality, which became known as the MAGA, that was pushing back on this artificial intelligence dystopia and was pushing back on the destruction of freedom of speech and all these other impositions, digital ID, etc. And this level, this cult level, works through both the left and the right, and the bloody center, come to that, to push this agenda forward. And how it works is when the left are in power, they target freedom of speech. We've seen this with the whole woke mentality. If you don't use the right pronouns, you get fired. And so many excuses were used to, and are still being used in areas where the left is in power, to destroy freedom of speech and freedom of expression, freedom of opinion. So then you bring in, because people, and this is the targeting of the so-called right or the MAGA, they don't want that. But you still got to bring them in to the arena of supporting the destruction of freedom of speech. And so what you do is you have people like Trump and these other people, Vance and Musk, all of them, and they stand up, oh, we stand for freedom of speech. We've got to stop this wokery. And the people that don't want the wokery and the destruction of freedom of speech under that justification vote for them. And they get in. And then once they get in, they start being increasingly a mirror of that, using different excuses. So now we have a situation in which the right, in the form of Pam Bondi, the Attorney General in the United States, a Trump clone, is using the very term hate speech that they used and they opposed. We're seeing people like Alex Jones, my God, what's happened to this guy, who is promoting this agenda, using things like accusing the left in the wake of the Charlie Kirk shooting, describing them as domestic terrorists. Now, this is the same Alex Jones and the MAGA that were condemning the left, dubbing the right, when they were in power, as domestic terrorists. And so we now have this fusion, this Hegelian dialectic, they call it, where you have the synthesis of two apparently opposing ideologies that now start to agree on the same ground. So when the left's in power, they use excuses to destroy freedom of speech. Now when the right's in power, they use different excuses to destroy freedom of speech, using the very same terms, like hate speech and domestic terrorists. It's a psychological game. It's a psyop on both left and right. And if we don't see this other level that works through both, then we are going to go on fighting each other while this level advances its agenda unchallenged. Why do you think that Elon Musk suddenly appears at a rally demanding freedom of speech, tells people to fight, gotta fight? Why are we having the same outcome no matter left, no matter right? Because they are both polarities of that. They are both pawns of that. And that level is what we must not only understand, but we must focus upon and ask why. Now, one of the great servants, one of the great agencies, vehicles for that is the government and intelligence military networks operating out of Israel. Not Jewish people in general, that level that runs Israel. This is why it operates in the United States. More and more people, including Charlie Kirk, were starting to see that, the massive influence it has. It has massive influence in Britain. through people like Starmer, massive influence in other countries around the world, in a covert way. And it's doing the bidding of that level. And so when you look at things like the Charlie Kirk shooting, appalling, by the way, there's very little that he said that I agreed with, but you certainly don't respond to it like that. But there are those immediately, and what you can see when one of these horrible events happens, be 9/11, be whatever, you have a story that is given to you immediately. That's why on 9/11, within minutes of it happening, the name of Osama bin Laden was introduced, because that was where they wanted to push you. And if you notice, whether it's the assassination of President Kennedy, of Bobby Kennedy, of Martin Luther King, whether it's 9/11, whether it's the invasion of Iraq on weapons of mass destruction as an excuse, what you find is that the initial story you're given is never the true story that comes out later. And so when I'm looking at this Charlie Kirk situation, from that level, I'm looking immediately, what is the story they want us to believe? And immediately the story appears, with the MAGA media pushing it, that it's the left, the left. And so what you have then is a reaction against the left by the right. Bang, 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 end of free speech. We support not having free speech anymore. That level is pissing itself with laughter at the naivety that it has instigated. And then there's others come along and say, oh no, it was Israel, because he was pushing back against Israel, and that would have been a nightmare for Israel if he'd have brought the Christian Zionists along with him. But when you look at that level, well, both can be true, and other possibilities can be true. Because what they want you doing is focusing on what they tell you is the perpetrator. I can't say at this moment for sure whether Tyler Robinson did it or didn't, or is a patsy, or was under mind control. I can't say that. There's a lot more research needs doing before we can come to conclusions like that. But what's happening is that is being pushed. You've got a ludicrous FBI story. The FBI, by the way, that serves that level through the generations. I mean, think J. Edgar Hoover for a start. And it's been telling you stories about these massive events like 9/11, etc., etc., and they invariably turn out not to be true. They've even been exposed again and again for using their agents and operatives and their agents to set up a terrorist attack and then move in to stop it and claim credit for it when they set it up. This is the FBI that's telling you the story of Charlie Kirk's shooting. The one thing you know about the FBI and these other people, like the Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms Organization, the NSA, the CIA, all of them, MI5, MI6, is whatever story they're telling you suits that level and ain't for you, to tell you the truth. So, you can have people, and I'm not relating this to the Charlie Kirk shooting because I don't know yet, there's more research to do, but I'm using it as a blueprint for how it's done. You can have the front of the spear as the person that's focused upon, the person who does it, if you like. But then you've got to start working back through all these different levels to find the people that actually orchestrated the firing of the spear, the arrow. And in that way, you can have someone of the left or someone of the right carrying something out, but if you go back through the smoke and mirrors and into the shadows, you'll find who actually orchestrated it and made it happen. And all that is what the alternative media should be doing, but largely is not in its algorithmically promoted central core that's taken over the alternative media since COVID. And it's about time they bloody started and stopped being hacks and propagandists for the system. Because Trump's as much as part of the system as Biden was and Obama was, because they're puppets of that. I'm sitting here after 35, 36 years, in 1990 I started out, of seeing all this unfold and seeing the patterns of how it's done. And I'm looking on with shaking bloody head at how easy it has been for that to play the string section of what claims to be the alternative media. Now there are some good people, some intelligent people who are seeing it, who are doing it the old way by understanding how the game works. But there is the central core that gets all the numbers and the algorithmic support is playing the game of that on a scale that beggars belief. It's got to stop, and if it doesn't stop, then we need to call it out, which I'm doing. So that's just a few thoughts on the situation we're in. What they want is a civil war, not just in America, not just in the United Kingdom, but around the world. So that we're so busy fighting each other that we leave that level alone to go about its business of imposing dystopia. And remember this, as I'm speaking here, Trump's in London meeting the bloody king and Starmer, appropriately, really. And in America, they're using the excuses of the left to impose blocks and deletion of freedom of speech. In Britain, we have a government that claims to be left, that is using, and has done since it came to power, using to excuse their destruction of freedom of speech, basically the right. It's exactly what I'm saying. When the right's in power, it targets the left to destroy freedom of speech. When the left's in power, it targets the right to justify freedom of speech. Come on, people. Let's wake the hell up while we still can. Because we're being played, well, many people are, and it should end now, because we're if we don't see it, going to be played off against each other until dystopia rules completely.